Salutations to our fine podcast audience. Welcome to Three Peas in a Podcast.
I guess I have to say we made it, but it's 2 P's today.
It is 2 Peas. We're at episode 214, and you see I hesitated because we are 3 Peas in a pod, but today we're only 2.
Yeah, and our normal we made it person.
He didn't make it.
No, it's his birthday week.
Yes, and as a birthday present to Nathan, he does not have to
Y'all
put up
should
with
say
us.
happy 34th birthday to Nathan.
He's 34.
I remember being 34.
He's a young buck. I'll tell you what. So as a birthday present, he gets to not put up with us. And but unfortunately, Nathan,
our good friend brought us food.
Yes, and we see, for those of you who've been with us for a long time on this podcast, we used to get presents of food all the time
From our friend,
That's right.
Chef Michael at Good Food, Good Fuel, who's part of Community Christian. Many of you probably don't know, but you sit next to a chef often in church. He and his wife Tammy are part of our church and have been for a while. He brought us a dish today.
And it looks amazing.
Yeah, the presentation, which I think Charlie got a shot of. This is roasted spaghetti squash with Parmesan creamed kale and toasted sunflowers, which to me, and I'll just say, the smell has been intriguing to me since I walked into the room. I want to taste it. So I think we should go ahead and do that. This is a brand new recipe that will be available soon on Facebook and Instagram. We are the first people, and Charlie's also eating it.
That's right.
That have eaten this outside of his wife and family.
Oh, I feel so special.
So it's a new thing that he's been wanting to do, which is to make the vegetable itself I don't know what you call it, the vehicle.
The presentation.
Part of the presentation. Everything is contained.
Those of you who aren't watching, it is like a section of the spaghetti squash has been put like a cylinder here on the plate, and it's filled with all the good things.
Man,
and it's amazing.
It's really good.
It's so great. I love spaghetti squash. Anyway,
me too.
It's so versatile. You can do all kinds of. I'm a cook at my house, and I have used it many, many times. But this is the best I've ever had. So
now I'm gonna say, for those of you who may not, think about vegetable stuff, I don't know what you guys think. I always think of spaghetti squash like it's a little noodle-like kind of.
Yeah, kind of like pasta.
But I'll say this: the way he's cooked it,
crispy.
It makes me think of hash browns.
Yes, they have a little crunch to it.
Yeah, what do you think, Charlie?
I like it.
I like it too. I'm a kale guy. I also like kale a lot, and I love who couldn't love Parmesan?
I mean, come on. Remind them how they find Chef Michael.
He doesn't tell me that, but I would look for Good Food, Good Fuel on Facebook and Instagram. I know he also he used to do some live presentations where he would do cooking classes.
And in this recipe, going to be on his.
That's what he said. Brand new recipe will be available soon on Facebook and Instagram.
All right.
Michael's an amazing person.
Yes,
he and his wife Tammy were a part of the team that cooked for our Nest program, the Noonan Emergency Shelter. They provided food at least some of the time, along with a couple of other they're not professional chefs, but people that were nice enough to cook for our homeless visitors. So anyway, I'm going to eat this later, but we'll talk, and this may be shorter because I don't want that to get
Well, I was wondering if today's podcast is going to be a little shorter since we are minus one voice.
Well, maybe.
But we'll see. We'll see. It might mean you and I talk more.
We'll pick up the slack.
We'll see. But today's question comes, by the way, we have lots of questions that have rolled in over the past couple of weeks.
Oh, really?
Yes, we have. But they're real short and real to the point. Which, that's fine, but it's a little odd for us.
Somebody in my style.
I guess. They've heard you, Ed, and they're getting right to it.
Just get right to it.
Getting right to the heart.
So I don't lose focus.
That's right. Getting right to the heart of this. So we'll see how much you have to say about this, because we can go all kinds of ways with this question that starts us off in our little over the next few weeks. So here we go. Are you ready for the quick question?
Let's do it.
How much influence does Satan have in the world today, Ed? How much influence does Satan have?
Well, he only has influence. I'll say that. So let's start with that.
Good point.
Okay, so only influence, not control.
I was going to say, as opposed to having power.
Yeah, he has, all power is granted to him. So he only has influence. So I think that's important because some people act like
Mm.
he is a powerful fellow.
Well, like he's making us do things.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He has influence.
Hmm. And his influence, I would imagine, is in the form of temptations.
That's what I gather.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I know in the book of James, he says very clearly, look, God doesn't tempt anybody.
Mhm.
Well, that's pretty much leaves the rest to Satan.
Yeah, and he also says, I'm pretty sure this is James. I could look it up pretty quick, but
Mhm.
he says, don't let anybody say when they're tempted by evil. All temptation comes from within you.
Well, there you go.
So inevitably, I would want to say to people when you talk about how much influence does he have? He has influence. There's no doubt there's a lot. In fact, he's called by Paul the prince of the power of the air.
Yeah.
So he has a lot of influence. I think a lot of influence, no control,
Mhm.
a lot of influence. But the people he ultimately winds up influencing to do his bidding, the temptations came from within.
Mm. Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's a revealing that takes place. So I don't know who wrote this question. I don't know what they're trying to get at in this question.
Mhm.
I don't know where they're
Maybe
trying
they're
to.
worried that Satan has a lot of influence on them.
Yeah, maybe so.
I don't know.
And I will say, I think there is a lot. I think all of us know what it's like to have been tempted. Anybody says there aren't probably. I mean, they're tempted to lie right then.
There you go. That's right.
All of us know what it's like to be influenced and
Mhm.
tempted,
Mhm.
but we also all know how to get out of that. With every temptation,
Yes.
there is a way out,
That's right.
and you
Which
just,
then also speaks, I think, to the what we call this influence or power that Satan has.
Mhm.
It's I would say from what I read in the scriptures, it seems to be very small.
it's fleeting.
Yeah.
It is the kind of thing that is it James again that says, "If you resist the devil, he'll flee from you."
Mhm.
That all you have to do is say no,
Mhm.
and he's gone.
Yeah. And then there's that classic passage of scripture, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. And that's just a reference to saying, look, what you've got as a believer in Christ, the Spirit of Christ, Spirit of God, which raised Jesus from the dead, lives within us. He that's in you is far more superior and greater than the power and influence, limited as it is, that Satan has in this world. So the thing that I'll just tell you, the thing that it disturbs me many times, because I've talked to a lot of Christian brothers and sisters over the years about this issue, and I notice a lot of my brothers and sisters get really scared, or they get really amped up about worrying about how Satan's going to take over their children or take influence over them, as if there would be nothing they could do about it, so
Right.
to speak. And or they find a spot in the wider culture, maybe pop culture or something, where they would say Satan's got a hold of this, or Satan's in Hollywood or something like that. And it's like,
Satan is in Hollywood,
well, yeah, he's
and
but
in Turin.
yes, not in any different kind of way. But my point is that they get really afraid. And what I want to say to them all the time is, I'm like, is this posture that you have towards the Satan, is it consistent with the spirit that lives within you? A spirit that has no fear. And then I think what it says to us is how much of a problem do you think Satan is for God? Because you seem to feel like it's a big problem.
Yeah.
And I just question that approach to it sometimes, because I think unintentionally a lot of Christians are diminishing the power and influence of Jesus in their life.
Yeah, and particularly, I think that when it comes to children, you mentioned children, so I want to talk about that. I have also found that through the years that people are very afraid about Satan getting a hold of their kids.
Yep.
And I'm not saying you shouldn't be concerned about the influence Satan can
True.
have in your kid's life, because
That's right.
he is trying to do that.
That's right.
So as a good parent, if I know there's something trying to influence my kid, I have one of two choices. I can try to protect them,
Mm-hmm.
but since I'm protecting them from a spirit that I don't have a way to keep a spirit away from my kids. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There is I can't build walls high enough. I can't do anything that. So then the right thing to do is to prepare them for how do I deal with this, knowing it will come. This is going to come. And it might not come through music or through a movie or through something a teacher is going to say. It may very well, I know for sure because the scripture tells me this, everyone who's tempted, don't let any man who's tempted say that I've been tempted by evil. Every temptation comes from within.
Yeah.
And within each one of us, there are things that tempt us. They've been at work in us since we were little.
Yeah.
You know, some of us are tempted to want to make everybody love us by not having any boundaries. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And we don't see that as a Satan thing. We just see that as a character thing.
Yeah.
But Satan plays on that stuff to lead us into positions that we wind up doing things that eventually lead us to evil. So I would talk to my kids about everybody who's an adult knows what it's like to hear the voice of the tempter in the moment. But everybody who's a follower of Christ also knows what it's like to hear the voice of the Savior at some point, or you wouldn't be a Christian.
That's right.
And Jesus says, my sheep know my voice.
Yes.
So I would want to train my kids to hear the voice of the Lord and to do what we've talked about many times. Quick obedience to the voice of the Lord is a way to prevent the influence of the evil one.
Yes. And what I hear you saying, Ed, is that if we do a good job as parents of attuning our kids' ear to the voice of God, the voice of the Spirit, then when the voice of the tempter is out there and they do hear it, it's not a problem.
That's
necessarily.
right.
And I'm not saying your kids won't be tempted and they won't sin.
And that they won't fall.
That's right. Because, hey, I am tempted and I fall.
Well, nobody
even
needs,
today, nobody's perfect at this.
Yeah, everybody who knows what it's like to need Jesus is a person who has fallen.
Exactly.
And we all need Jesus.
Yes. But once you get, because here's the thing is, and I don't know where I heard this, but I think it was somebody who's kind of in the apologetics kind of world of Christianity, and they were talking about if I spend all my time trying to point out all the cults and all the false teaching out there, I would spend all my time doing that. I would much, much rather focus on the truth of God, what is biblical, and amplify that, because once you understand the truth, then you'll spot a lie instantly.
That's right.
And that's what I think you're talking about doing with our children. It reminds me, I just had a conversation with my daughter about this, and we were having this conversation because, you know, I think this happens in every generation. Artists and media come up, and a lot of Christians will point to some popular media and they will say, see, they are Satanists, or they are influenced by Satan, and there's some evil behind this. And they'll want to warn our kids out of that. And so she had some people do that for one of her favorite artists. And so we had this great conversation about that. And I said, well, what do you think about this artist that you listen to? And basically what our conversation came down to was, she said, well, this person I look up to, or I like their music or whatever, they're not a perfect person. And sometimes I hear them do things, or hear them say things or do things that I know is not of Jesus. It's not in the way of Jesus. I don't care about that stuff because that's just them.
That's right.
I certainly don't follow them just because I like their music. I know what Jesus says is right and says is wrong. I know what the Bible teaches. And so when my favorite artist goes off track or does something that I don't agree with, I just go, that's somebody I need to pray for.
Yes.
That's somebody that needs some more direction. Maybe they've made a bad decision, and unfortunately they've made it in a big public way. So we pray for those people. But she said, I'm not influenced by them.
Right.
Because my heart belongs to Jesus. And it made me feel really, really good after that was over, because I thought, wow, maybe I did something right as a parent, because I tried to, like you said, amplify the voice of the Spirit and the voice of Jesus to the point where that's the predominant voice in her life. And all this other stuff that can be very influenced by Satan can scream as loud as they want to. She knows her shepherd.
That's right.
That's what I'm hoping for. And so I would say to the person who asked this question, back to what we said. Yeah, Satan does have some influence in this world today. But if you focus just on his voice, you're probably not going to get what you want in the end.
Particularly if you're constantly looking to see where you see him.
That's right.
That's probably the wrong focus. You should not be looking for where you should see him.
Mm-hmm.
We should be looking for the Lord.
Yes.
And he is also very evident and very influential in this world. You know, and I think we've mentioned this on the podcast before. There's a parable of the kingdom where it says the kingdom will grow to a seed that all the birds of the air will come and nest in it. Well, a lot of times we don't realize not all birds were seen as godly birds in Israel. Some of them, you know what I'm saying? But Jesus says all the birds are going to have, because God sends his blessing on the just and the unjust. And I should be able to look and say, you know, there's some people that want, you know, there's some beautiful art in the world that when you know about the artist's life, you go, wow, I thought I saw a little glimpse of God in that, but that person is not a good person.
Yeah.
But God has a tendency to show up in the life of people.
He could do that.
It aren't necessarily the best of human beings.
Absolutely.
You know? And sometimes, you know, people that are exceptionally godly, and then all of a sudden you find out, oh, there was a flaw in their life. And a lot of people fall because of that. But your daughter had a better outlook of, hey, you know, we all mess up, and that's just a person I need to pray for. I shouldn't have probably been trying to follow them as closely as I was trying to hear the voice of the Spirit through them.
And you remind me also of the parable of the wheat and the tares.
I thought of that earlier.
As you were talking, you know, Jesus said the world is going to be like a wheat field that's got weeds in it. And instead of the workers going out and saying, well, let's go pull up the weeds, Jesus says, no, we're going to let them grow together.
Yeah.
And that's the world we live in. We will be coexisting in this world with people and influences and, you know, all kinds of stuff that do not hold our same values.
It's tough to tell them apart sometimes. Sometimes
Absolutely.
It's really tough to tell them apart.
That's why I think it's just more important that we focus in on the shepherd's voice. We focus in on love as our primary vocation, and let him worry about pulling up all that stuff when the time comes. I mean, you know, I know a lot of people say, well, we got to take a stand against stuff. I'm all for that, but I'm not all for taking a stand against people.
That's right. Taking a stand against stuff is a really good idea.
Yeah.
But taking a stand against a person who does a thing, that probably isn't what we're supposed to be about.
Yeah. It gets us back to what we've talked about here as well, that our battle is not against flesh and blood. It's against spirits, Satan, his influence in the world. So absolutely we should point it out when we see it, and that's not the way of Jesus. And look over here, but I would much rather us amplify his voice, Jesus' voice, than to go on this search for, you know, a satanic influence under every rock.
Well, because you're going to wind up, you wind up spending so much time looking for Satan. He doesn't have as much control as most of the people I find that are on Satan hunts all the time. It feels fear-based to me.
It does.
And I know for sure that the spirit that's in us is not a spirit of fear. And I had a professor years ago that would take, I think it's the path you quoted just a minute ago. He says, greater is he that's in us than he is in the world. I think the verses, and I may be mashing them up. He says before that, Satan's like a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour.
Yep.
I think those are they may not be the same passage,
well,
but he talked that
still
passage.
in there.
He took that passage and he would say to us, you'll notice that it does not say Satan is a devouring lion. He's just a roaring lion. And he's seeking. A roaring lion is trying to frighten you.
Yeah.
He's trying. He often roars and paralyzes something. He's just trying. His primary weapon is division and fear. And when you begin to think about dividing people and getting people afraid, that's probably neither of those are works of God.
No. And if
Uh,
he can get that done, well, he's done plenty,
That's right.
right? Because now because we know this, fear can exist with love.
Right.
You can't properly love a person if you're afraid either of what might happen or afraid of them
That's right.
themselves. And so if he can keep you afraid, like you said, going on that hunt, trying to find a satanic something or behind every tree, then you are rendering yourself incapable of the way of Jesus. You can't love people.
That's right.
Because that's your primary focus. And so right there, if he can get that done, job done.
Yeah. One of the things we were just talking about in our on mission groups was, in fact, the day that we're taping this is about, we're reading Luke 15 and about lost, and how about thinking about people that are lost. And I said in my letter, one of the things that I've noticed over the last few years for me, as I've been doing this walk that we're doing together, where we regularly are praying, Lord, help me see like you see and hear like you hear, so that I can do like you would do, is that I have found myself, and I didn't even notice this until just the last few months, and this is not my nature for 60 something years. This has not been my nature. So when it came apparent to me, I go, oh, that's a God thing. I am currently giving people the most generous explanations for their weird behaviors. That things that it would irritate me. And in the past, naturally, because I'm making up a story either way.
Yep.
I see a behavior. It does something to me. I've got to make up a story about why that happened.
Yeah, if you don't know.
If I don't know, and I'm not going to go over and confront them. And even the act of confronting them, that word itself says, I think something bad happened, and I've got to, in my whole life, I have made that a story that fueled my fire. You know, what stoked me up, either to judge them, to dislike them, to be mad at them. And as I have begun to pray, Lord, help me see like you see, hear what you hear, so I can do what you do, I find myself just naturally going, well, you never know, such and such could happen.
Exactly.
And I probably acted like that when that happened to me. And I'll give them explanations for things that I just go, okay, well, you know what? I'm just going to pray for them. I can't do nothing. I'm just going to bless them. Lord, bless them. It looks like they're having a hard time. That has begun to flow naturally out of me, instead of the other side, which I used to see terrible things in people all the time. I think if we would stop looking for Satan so much, I have begun to see God in his work in people, that I don't think they know they're even doing God's work when they're doing it.
Yes.
And I that's what I wish Christians would get more about, instead of trying to blame stuff. It feels like at times we honor Satan way more than we should.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So how much influence does he have? He has influence. There's no doubt he has influence. He doesn't have control, I don't think.
But I think you're right. I think the more credence, more influence we try to put into his camp, I think the more he likes it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because we're just handing him
that's right,
more than what he already has. I think it's, again, you don't just wipe it all away and say nothing.
No.
That you don't go from one extreme to the I think it's that fight of going from one extreme to the other. I don't think it's wise.
I think those of us who have influence with each other should have those conversations and go, hey, I feel like there's influence being had here, and maybe you ought to think about, like I'm preparing my kids, I try to prepare friends, and we try to prepare each other for things. Hey, I see something in your life. I think those are the conversations Christians need to have with each other.
Yeah.
We should probably not be having them openly with people that
certainly not people outside the church.
No. And you're controlled by the devil, or this person you listen to is controlled by the devil, or this thing. One, I don't know that person I just spoke about personally, if it's a big national, international figure.
Yeah.
So now I have already violated Jesus by judging a person that I can only see a little bit. And, particularly with artists,
Yeah.
We know artists often use things provocative to provoke something out of us that they don't even.
Yeah.
That's all they're trying to do is provoke something.
That's right.
That's what art does. Is provoke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So anyway, that's my thought about that.
That's my thoughts too. And I'm just staring here at my food, and I'm ready to get back to it. So I think that's all we got to say, and I'm going to finish this amazing dish
Me
here.
too.
in a
Thank you
second.
again, Michael.
Yes, thank you, Michael. It
Y'all
was
check him
amazing.
out.
Y'all should go make this, or this is worth trying. So, all right. Well, next week we got another question on tap. We're going to talk about secret sins. I'm going to bring the secrets out into the open.
Okay.
So,
Yours or mine?
I don't know. Depends on who starts
Yeah,
first.
I guess so.
So, y'all come back next week and we'll talk about that. In the meantime, I'm gonna eat. Y'all have a great week. See ya.